together fight the foe. Scoring touchdowns for the Blue Blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go, go, go! Together fight the foe. Scoring touchdowns for the Blue on Blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go Toronto, go. Go Argos, go, go, go.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 2 of the Argo Bounce podcast show with hosts Chris Pomay, Nick Small, a weekly, independent, non-affiliated show with the CFL's 19-time Grey Cup champion, Toronto Argonauts. I hope everyone is doing well on this Tuesday, May 26, 2026, and I'm going to bring on my co-host. Before we bring on our co-host, I have a new feature on StreamYard, so we're going to give him a little bit of an applause. Oh, sorry, wrong one. There we go. There we go.
Well, glad we got the applause after. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to being here. We got a lot to cover as we saw the Argonauts' first preseason game of the 2026 season against Hamilton in a very messy, wet, weathered game in Hamilton Stadium. The Argonauts managed to walk away with a 20-10 win. We'll talk our way through that, how we evaluate players coming out of that and was really a difficult situation. And we'll look a little bit ahead to this Friday, May 29th for the rematch preseason game in Guelph.
We've already got comments here from Hamilton Sports Central. Rick, hello,
Hi, Rick.
fellows. He's watching on YouTube. Thank you so much. And we have a viewer watching from St. Louis, Missouri, the home of the St. Louis Blues and the biggest Montreal Canadian fan in America. George Brown, 9277, wants to say hello, Chris and Nick. Thank you, Rick and George, for coming on. And if you have questions for me and Nick, feel free to type them in the comment section. Don't mind me, guys. I've been really busy lately, and I was in Toronto for like 12 hours yesterday and had to get up early this morning. So I'm kind of on my second ring. Oh, you're
There you go, George, buddy. Go Habs, go. Go Habs, go.
They're done. They're done. They're done. The Canadians even admitted last night they're out of gas.
They were overtime losses. There's still a chance.
They were outshot, 35-12? Like, honestly,
yeah, but the Habs are always outshot. It's quality, not quantity. But hey, so while we're on this, I will say though, nobody expected them to get as far as they did. Everybody had them as like out of round one and maybe learn from it, kind of like last year. No matter what happens the rest of the series, they get as far as they did is a huge accomplishment. And the icing on the cake is that unlike a couple of other hockey teams that we know of, they didn't sell the farm to try to make a playoff push this year. They still have all their draft picks for next year. So the thing is, they're only going to get better. So that's how I look at it.
But the Toronto Marlies are going to win another Calder Cup championship, and they eliminated the Montreal Canadiens farm system. So the Toronto Maple Leafs can say they have the best farm system in hockey right now with the Toronto Marlies.
That's not how it works. I wouldn't give that too much credit.
The Toronto Marlies are the pride and joy of MLSE. Out of all their franchises.
Wow, that's a big disrespect to the Argos. They've won
2024
and 2022.
Yes, I'm just joking, but the Marlies, honestly, the Marlies, tremendous playoff round. They're now taking on what, Scranton Wilkes-Barre Penguins. I'd like to try to catch one of the games. AHL hockey is good. AHL hockey.
Yeah. That Kyle Dubas guy. How'd he do when he got promoted from Marley's GM to Leafs GM? So
Yes.
maybe we'll leave that to the hockey experts and move on with our football talk, as we know that way better than hockey.
Well, Rick's going to ask you a question that I was going to ask you, but we'll get to Rick's question now. Rick's watching on YouTube. Please follow him on Hamilton Sports Central on X and his YouTube channel. As far as Friday's game, do you guys see Chad Kelly getting more time? I personally think he'll play one or two series, and that's it. I don't think he'll play a whole quarter.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would like to see more play from him, and like, whether or not from this past week the weather had anything to do with it, maybe. If the weather's good in Guelph, like I think we pretty much anticipate, I mean, it can't be any worse than it was in Hamilton last weekend. I think I would like to see more play from Kelly, but if you want to just start with talking about Chad Kelly's play as sort of the big elephant in the room, the big question everybody had going in, I thought he looked exactly like the Chad Kelly he was before he got injured. There was no hesitancy. There was no like this, oh, am I going to get hit? Am I going to fall down awkwardly? There wasn't any of that. The two plays that stand out to me, the one was the running play where he ran and slid, but ran for like a good 20, 25 yards was one thing. But the play that I thought stood out more to me than that play was later on in his next series after. He kind of rolls to the right, and the check down is there beside him where he can just kind of pitch the ball off to the running back and have him run with it. But he sees a guy doing a 10-yard out or hook route near the corner of the field, about 10, 15 yards down the field. And that's the kind of throw that we've seen the Chad Kelly of the past, the gunslinger throw again and again. He always looks downfield to the open guy. And when he made that passing attempt, that told me that he is completely fine and he's the Chad Kelly that we should expect as normal. There was nothing out of his play that really worried me. I don't know what you think, Chris, but that's the way I took from it.
I would say they're going to give him 2 series in Guelph. I think he'll get the opening 2 series, and then I think they're going to see who's going to be the number 3 quarterback. Kelly's number 1, Arbuckle's number 2. They want to see who's going to be number 3, Tucker Horn or the other gentleman, Anthony. What's his last name again? Garcia.
Yeah.
Okay.
On to him. If we want to move on to him next, I mean, I have to admit, and I'm maybe being a little bit blunt because whether or not it had to do with the O-line as well, but in the double blue game, I didn't think Garcia looked that good at all. Like, there were 2 drop snaps, which I don't know. It could be blamed on the center as well, because I think it was the second string offensive line at that point. But I at least my opinion, I thought he struggled in the double blue game, but he looked a lot more comfortable in the Hamilton game. And I don't know if it's just because, it's full contact or whatever, or different players than that would be there in the scrimmage game. But I thought he showed a lot more in that game. And ultimately he was responsible as the quarterback for the points that gave the Argos the lead and sealed it, even if it was kind of a turnover on downs in Hamilton's own end. Like, that kind of gave it to them, but it's still a good thing when coming in as that potential third string that you're able to capitalize. And he threw 3 for 4 passes for 50 yards, and he had some pretty decent rushing numbers as well, from what I remember. 2 rushes, 15 yards, including, I think he had the touchdown carry. So he looked good for what I saw. So, when it's between him and Tucker Horn probably for that third spot. So it was good for him.
Because they're definitely not carrying 4 quarterbacks. They'll carry 3. So one of them's going to go. I really think Kelly will get a couple series. Arbuckle will get a couple series. And then the rest of the game, it's going to be Tucker and Anthony in there to see who's going to get that 4th spot. And we get another question from Rick, or a comment. He says, this weekend also, do you see Isaiah Smith playing this week? With him being from the University of Guelph, yes, in my opinion, he'll get some playing time today, or Friday night.
Yeah, I hope to see him play. I think with his resting. I think it's more similar to like Kevin Mittal last year, or the year before, where he missed kind of the beginning set of games more due to injury. I think they know Isaiah Smith is too valuable a guy that they don't want to rush him into playing. And I think kind of what we saw out of the game last week is that Samuel Hicks, Peyton Logan, they did all right. So I think they're gonna probably ride with those guys, I think, for the second preseason game. I definitely would like to see Isaiah Smith get some snaps, but if he's not 100% and not ready, it's the same with Kevin Mittal 2 years ago. Have them start when they're ready and use it as an opportunity for them to develop and to learn.
Does Smith get hurt in training camp or the preseason game? Because I don't think he was even in the preseason game.
Yeah, he wasn't dressed for the preseason game. I don't remember how many snaps he took in the double blue game. I don't remember him taking that many. So I think it's just being cautious with something that might be bugging him, if anything.
All right, Nick. Just overall thoughts on the game against Hamilton, and I guess TSN broadcast the game, but I have. You know what's frustrating? I have 4 TSN channels, and they didn't put it on any of them. They put it on TSN2, which you got to pay an extra $15 a month to subscribe. So I didn't even watch the game. I'm just watching some of the highlights online as well. And I heard from George Brown in St. Louis that the TSN cameras weren't that great with the heavy rain there in Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, the coverage, like the AV, the audio was fine. The coverage was Marshall Ferguson and Paul LaPolice, so it was exceptional from that standpoint. But yeah, you think with a $200,000 camera, they could afford a $10 squeegee and clear some of that rain off the camera. It was a little bit hard to view at times with sort of the blurriness from the rain, but and yeah, I mean, it was definitely really difficult to evaluate really what was going on because the conditions were so difficult. I wanted to be at the game. I unfortunately missed it. I wasn't able to attend in person, but kudos to everybody from both sides, the Hamilton side and the Toronto side, that made it out to the game. But when you have those kind of conditions, it makes it hard to evaluate talent. Like there's talk about how the gloves just, when they get too wet, you can't grab onto the ball, and they were dealing with that problem. So they started playing without gloves to big catches. The opening pass of the game, I thought Chad Kelly, perfect pass to Coxie. That was something where in the double blue game or in the scrimmages, he would have ran that at least 30 yards down the field, but it kind of just slipped out of his hand. And like, that's where, like, when you're evaluating, like, and going back to Chad, like, I thought he looked fine. Like, his passes were good, and it was more just receivers weren't able to come down with it because of the conditions that in a normal kind of sunny or cool day, they would probably make that catch 9 times out of 10. And when it's just in those weather conditions, you get a lot more 50-50 balls. The one thing I will say that was definitely something to consider and to reflect on, at least going forward, is definitely special teams. I thought they really struggled on their kick and punt coverage. There was the Mario Alford touchdown return that got called back, but there were a couple other big returns that I think, playing in the conditions, you have to understand that, especially if you're in that contained role on the outside, it's way more important that you've got to really focus on those little things. And it's hard in those wet weather conditions. It's easy to get complacent and to lose that focus, and I think they kind of let it get away from them a little bit on kick coverage. So that was definitely something I think, reflecting on, they need to improve going into this next preseason game against Hamilton.
Was Hamilton releasing Mario Alford? Any chance the Argos pick him up?
I doubt it. Like, you got Janarian Grant, so I got to think that they'd stick with him. Yeah, I mean, Wooden is younger and probably at about the same skill level as Alford. So I don't know. There's probably someone that might pick him up. Maybe Winnipeg. I don't know, but Edmonton maybe. I'm kind of guessing, but yeah, I feel like he'll probably get picked up somewhere. But yeah, I can understand with signing Wooden back that they let Alford go.
Nick, when you just give me a minute, I'm gonna play one of my interviews last week with two-time Grey Cup champion Jonathan Kabongo, and I just want to get your thoughts after the interview on Jonathan Kabongo and how much of an impact he can make on the defensive line this year for the Argonauts. All right, guys, I'm going to play this interview right now with Jonathan Kabongo, defensive tackle with the Toronto Argonauts at training camp last week. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Chris Pomay Live with CDP Talk Show. This is Jonathan Kabongo, defensive lineman with the Toronto Argonauts at the University of Guelph from last week. Chris Pomay here live at Alumni Stadium at the University of Guelph, and I have one of the Toronto Argonauts here, Jonathan Kabongo. Jonathan, just thoughts on training camp here with the Toronto Argonauts so far?
Honestly, training camp's been amazing. I'll say one thing. I've been on a couple of championship-winning teams, but what's special about this team is that the bond that we were able to create in these last 2 weeks. I'm going to tell you this. We've been working hard. We've been counting on each other, and we're very excited to show it this weekend.
How much of the transition was it coming to the Argonauts into a new system and a new team?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it was a transition, but the coaches made it very smooth. I think they had a plan for me coming in, and once I stepped into the role, it was real easy sailing.
What are your thoughts on some of the changes to the CFL game in the next couple of years, too, as a player perspective?
You know, as a player perspective, I'm all for anything that's going to push the game. So if the people in the league office think these changes are what's best to move the game forward, I'm okay with it. But as a player, I need to focus on what matters. It's not about the rules or not. As a D lineman, it's about physicality. It's about block destruction. It's about getting to the quarterback. So that's all I really care about.
How would you describe yourself as a defensive lineman?
Oh, fearless, tenacious, a leader. I'm a dog. I like to get after the ball. I like to rush. I like to play the run. So I feel like I'm a complete D lineman, especially in this part of my career. I know it's taken a little bit of time, but I am presenting the best football that I got.
What's 3 words to describe yourself as a player?
As a player, vicious, relentless, and mean.
For fans of the Argonauts in the CFL, what's a fun fact about yourself and a defensive lineman?
Okay, fun fact about me, I speak 4 languages. Wow. And fun fact, as a D lineman, I like to eat a lot. I ain't gonna lie. I be eating a lot of food. I do about 6,000 calories a day. Yep.
What's some of your favorite foods?
Ooh, I will go Italian. I love Vietnamese. I love pho, especially being Canadian myself and how multicultural it is up here. I love butter chicken. I just love food from all over the world.
And the 4 languages, which 4 languages can you speak?
I speak French, Lingala, Swahili, and English.
If you were not a professional football player, what would you be?
If I wasn't a professional football player, you know, honestly, if you asked me this question a year ago, I wouldn't have an answer for you. But this last offseason, I really took time to connect with myself and discover who I was. So if I wasn't a football player, I think I'd be inspiring others in some type of way or form.
And if you weren't a football player and you could play one other sport, what one would it be?
Soccer.
Soccer?
Oh, yeah.
Who's your favorite soccer team?
Ronaldinho, Barcelona, OG, back in the day. If you know, you know.
Are you going to happen to go to any of the World Cup games in Toronto?
I'm going to definitely check it out. I know the whole world's going to be here. I know it's going out throughout Canada, so I think it's an awesome summer for the city of Toronto and Canada as a whole.
And soccer's been great because a lot of kickers have been soccer players too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, a lot of kickers are soccer players. I think the transition is very smooth, and I think it's a perfect sport to kind of cross-train with kicking.
Is there a story behind your number?
So I've always been single digits my whole pro career. And then when I got here, I wanted to turn a new leaf. So I felt like number 95 was the best number, and it's a traditional D-line number. So that's why I chose it.
Who's the toughest D lineman you've gone against? Or
offensive
lineman, yes.
As a D lineman, none of them. But I will give the tips off. You know, they have Dakota Shepley over there. They have Nick Castro over there. They have Camp. And I think as a far, I couldn't single out a single player, but the whole line in itself, they work really well together. And I'm excited to see them play.
And in my opinion, being a football fan for almost 50 years, it all starts with the O-line and D-line.
Absolutely. It all starts in the trenches. I'm telling you, this year, Argo fans, we are going to win and lose by the performance of the trenches. And I give you our word, we're going to make it happen.
And just quick thoughts on Chad Kelly as a quarterback.
Oh man, he's a playmaker. He's electric. We all seen what he did in 2023, and he's back this year healthy and he's ready to lead us. So I'm telling you this is the year for the Argos. And I know I just got here, but it's been amazing to be able to be his teammate and finally compete against him in practice.
And what's one word to describe this 2026 Toronto Argonaut team?
Smart, fast, and physical.
And Jonathan, are you on social media for the Argo fans? They can follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on social media. On Twitter, it's at @king_Kongbo. And on Instagram, it's just straight up Kongbo.
And just quick thoughts on your opponents this Saturday, the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Oh, it's the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I don't think I need to hype it up and tell the fans what it's all about. We see them twice in this preseason, and you know how it is during the season. So I think from day one, from this game, we have to set the tone with the Hamilton Tiger Cats and let them know who runs this area.
Well, Jonathan, I want to say thank you so much for giving us some time this morning. Continued success and good luck Saturday against the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jonathan Kongbo from the Toronto Argonauts. Nick, yes, thoughts on the interview?
Yeah, really, really well spoken, dude. I'm gonna have to make sure I get a chance to talk to him during the preseason game this week at Guelph. Really, really phenomenal interview, and yeah, just super well spoken. Some of the fun facts are amazing. A football player like him speaking 4 languages, but also just being such a beast on the field. Gonna have to go for dinner with him one of these days. I know I don't look like it, but I love eating as well. So for a guy like that to pound down 6,000 calories is pretty impressive. But of course he burns it off playing. But yeah, like just looking at the roster, like when you look at all the guys who are on this defensive line, it's really exciting because you've got guys like Ralph Hawley added back on, Jeremiah Ocho. I think Andrew Chatfield is still there, Dwayne Hendricks. So you've got a really big lineup of guys there on the D line who are looking to prove themselves, and with Kongbo added as well, a guy who's a national player but also has a number of years now in the CFL, 2 Grey Cups, both with Winnipeg, someone who's traveled around quite a bit now. Hopefully makes the Toronto Argonauts his permanent home for the next couple seasons.
I got about 15 more comments to go over. George thinks Kelly needs to play a half. He's been gone for too long and needs more reps. George, I tend to agree with you, but thinking like the Argos management is, I don't think they want to risk him getting hurt in a meaningless preseason game. So I do think Kelly will play, but I think he'll only play the first 2 series, in my opinion. Rick's got another comment. What do you guys, out of curiosity, what do you guys think about the final cuts? And when are the final cuts, Nick? Do you know the date?
I think they got to be in before the first regular season game, but I don't know the exact date off the top of my head. When it comes to the cuts, yeah, it's really hard to gauge who's going to get cut and who's going to stick around, because I think a lot of guys have shown potential. Like I think quarterback wise, it's going to come down to Horner, Garcia. Running back and receiver wise, that's where I think a lot of the cuts are going to get made. But unless somebody's like really shown some high potential, it's going to be really hard for the veteran guys, I think, to be cut. But you never know. Like we think one guy's safe, and then all of a sudden we get a big announcement like the recent running back cut. So like it's nothing's ever really for certain these days. No one's job is safe.
Yeah, Rick was saying being so quick right after the game, it's like the game is now over. The GMs have to decide Friday who the final cuts are, and that's probably the hardest part as a coach, is cutting these guys, because you get to know them and you get to know their families and you want to see them do well. But football is also a business, and they got to make the best business decisions for the Toronto Argonauts team as well.
At the end of the day, you go from 75, almost 80 players, and you're down to 45 and 10 practice roster spots. So it's unfortunate. I think if you ask any coach what the guys they have at camp time, like you'd love to keep all of them, but a fact of it that you can't have everybody, and difficult decisions have to get made.
George Brown, watching from St. Louis, says he wants to ask Rick from the Hamilton Sports Central. Rick, question for you. Do you think Larry Roundtree 3 from Missouri U will be your starting running back? I feel he hasn't gotten a fair shot. As much as I like Johnny Augustine, I can't see Johnny Augustine being the number one back. So that's a good question, George. And Rick, if you're still watching, if you're able to answer this question about Larry Roundtree, since you've been at practice and their black and gold scrimmage game, that is a good question, George. And I think
looking at Roundtree, like he had 9 carries, 86 yards, and 1 touchdown in that preseason game. I don't remember if he got the starter reps or that was as a sub, but he did have quite a few number of touches in a game in which the wet weather conditions tend to lean towards a more running oriented offense. So generally fairly good results from him.
And right back, I'm trying to keep up with these guys' comments. As of right now, George 9277, he seems to be the number one back so far heading into Friday's game after last week's game. And then George Brown, I wish he'd come home to St. Louis and sign with the Battlehawks. Our loss is your gain. And then George Brown's got a comment for me. Chris, when you ever get this, I got a question. So the designated home games for the Argos, they're getting the revenue from those home games. They're getting the revenue for those home away games. Nick, I agree that they are. I am assuming they're getting compensated.
Yes. Yeah. My understanding is that for those 3 games, the Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, and Hamilton games, the revenue from those games go to the Toronto Argonauts to MLSE. They do, even though that they still have to. I'm assuming they have to pay the extent of whatever the operations budgeting is, for the ushers, the concession stand workers, the janitorial, all that kind of stuff, that also is deducted from it. But any of the profits from those ticket sales and all that go to the Toronto Argonauts. That is my understanding of it.
But Nick, one question. I realize they're playing in Saskatchewan, Hamilton, and Winnipeg, which are different stadiums, but they are technically Argo home games. Shouldn't the Argos PA announcer Adam Goss be doing those games, even though they're technically a home games, but away? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't really have a good answer for how they're exactly operating it, but to me, it seems like the game day operations it basically is operated as if it was just another Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Hamilton home game. The Hamilton one's definitely a bit more frustrating because it's so close, and all the season ticket holders lost or as part of our season ticket package have a ticket to that game that maybe some people necessarily wouldn't want to go to. There's options to exchange it for additional tickets for another Toronto game. But yeah, it is a little frustrating because effectively what the Argonauts have done, the CFL has done, is that the Argonauts have 2-3 additional away games that no one else in the league has to deal with. And yeah, it's like, I get you're trying to make lemonade out of lemons, but it is frustrating when you know that you're going to be playing in an environment additional times that is not lending itself to being successful. You're playing in a hostile crowd against the opposition in their market that hates you. Like, I would argue it would have probably been better to have Winnipeg and Saskatchewan play in each other's stadiums, and then you have other people. You don't have necessarily people there to cheer you on, more to boo against the Bombers against Rider fans or vice versa. But I mean, we saw where they did try a couple of years ago to have an Argos game in Hamilton as a designated Argos home game, and the majority of the fans were Ticats fans who were there just to boo the Argos, even though they were playing like Calgary or Saskatchewan or something. So that didn't really work out either. But I think as an Argos fan, like, it's insulting just from the fact that we care as deeply about our team as anyone else does, just because we don't have as big a numbers, and we're dealing with all this other competition with the Leafs, the Jays, the Raptors, the Tempo, the Scepters, the Marlies, whatever. Yeah, it's it does get frustrating that we're the only team in all of North American sports that time and time again we have to make these concessions and not being able to play within our own
The
GTA area.
problem is the Argos are not the main tenants at BMO Field. I love the site, BMO Field. I'm glad the Argos are back there. But personally, for this long-term visibility of this team, it would be better for the Argonauts to have their own stadium where they're the number one guys, because they're always going to take a backseat to the Toronto FC or any other event going on at BMO Field. So to me, I don't know if it's feasible, but I really think long-term the Argonauts need their own stadium.
Well, and that's the root of the problem. Like, until we manage to get BMO Field packed each and every game with 20,000 fans or more, it should, for nine regular season home games and maybe 1 or 2 playoff games. That's the problem. It's just not feasible as a business model right now, because, like, if you compare it to what the Riders have or what the Bombers have, they have a 40,000 seat stadium that has those 9 or 10 home games. It doesn't. You try to use it as a multi-purpose stadium, try to host soccer or some other kind of event, but there it's clear that it's they're the secondary tenant, whereas it's flipped in Toronto. The Argos are the secondary tenant to TFC. You need to find a business model in which you can make sure that those 10 games with 40,000 fans that sell out can then pay for the entire half a year in the middle of winter in freezing cold conditions where you can't host anything else. And I think the Toronto GTA market doesn't lend itself to that. And that's part of the frustration, because, the GTA, we're an area of 7 million people. We're by far the largest metropolitan area in all of Canada, and it's pretty pathetic when we don't have one other place other than BMO Field where we can play 3 football games. And that's the challenge in this Toronto market, and this is where, like, nobody else outside of us can really see or understand that, because it's a very uniquely Toronto problem.
And when I was in Toronto yesterday for the whole day, there was nothing about the Argos, nobody wearing Argo shirts, hats. You wouldn't even know if I wasn't from Canada or from Guelph, I wouldn't even know there was a CFL team there. It's kind of sad. And I don't know. Like I said, for this 9-game trip, Nick, I think the Argos have to at least go 5-4. I know it's going to be difficult, but I think realistically, even 4-5, 5-4, you don't want to. But then with this new setup, you could probably lose all 9 games and still make the playoffs.
Well, we look at our.
Not that it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Argos no way are going to lose 9 games in a row. But I'm just saying, I just think for the Argos, our organization, I think it would be great to win 4 or 5 at least minimum.
Well, I think you look at the interview you just had there with Jonathan Kongbo, and you look at the mentality, the focus you take. Yep. This is the rest of Canada betting against the Toronto Argonauts, and you feed in this dog mentality, this thing that has worked out so well for the Toronto Argonauts the last 5-6 years since Ryan Dinwiddie took under during COVID. You take this dog mentality in the whole, it's the rest of the world against us. And, you use that mentality to prove them wrong, that people are betting on the Argonauts to fail. And you use that as fuel, as motivation to be the best to your ability. And I think that's how they're going to look at it. I think they've got the right man at the helm in charge. And with Mike Miller, and I think you use that as fuel and as motivation to prove everybody wrong. And, like, if I can just say anything, like, I'm gonna mention this if I get a chance to say it to anybody at the game on Friday, it's that we might not be there physically just because of the logistics and stuff making it impossible, but Argo fans are there, and we care about our team just as much as Rider fans care about theirs, as Ticat fans care about theirs. We care about this team, and we want them to succeed, and we just need to do a better job. And in the day of social media now, it's easier than ever before to talk to people, to talk to players, coaches, management, whatever, but to prove to be like, hey, it's a difficult time. It's a time that, you guys are hurting being away from Toronto for as long as you are. We as fans are hurting because we can't have the opportunities to be there as we would like, but we're we're still here and we're supporting you every step of the way. And that's the mentality that I think you have to take it and to really motivate your guys to be at their best.
George says, I don't understand why they didn't go to Toronto University. Not big enough, George. It's only 5,000 seats. I don't even think it's that. And the neutral sites, they didn't want to do the neutral sites, to answer your question, George. But two positive things, Nick. The Argos did have kids stay at Alumni Stadium for the Argos practice today. So that is definitely a positive. Even though it's in Guelph, it's still getting kids exposed to CFL players and the Argos brand. And it's a shame they didn't have merchandise there too, or give the kids some shirts or hats too, because that's a great way of marketing and branding the team. I know it costs money, Nick, but it would have been nice to see them.
Do you think the Buffalo Bills would have covered giving them Future of Football T-shirts like they did at the game there last year? I will add in too with Kongmo's comments. Huge shout out to Jason Calero, who's a big proponent of the Huddle Up initiative. And like this is something that goes well beyond the MLSE ties. Like this is something that's been going on with the Toronto Argonauts for the last 15, 20 years now, I think. So like it's changed over the years, but like I even remember when I was playing youth football as a kid in the Mississauga Football League, and that was almost 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago now. So yeah, big shout out to Jason Calero and all he's done to really be a huge proponent of that.
Oh, by the way, I was on the Argonauts website today, and I guess Mike Miller called the team to midfield, and I guess the guys thought they were getting in shit for something or crap, and I guess he was quite happy with what they're doing in training camp. So I guess they took them to the Galaxy theaters for a movie and popcorn and all that. So I thought that was a nice story by Mike Hogan, putting it on the Argos website too. Stuff like that.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I mentioned this last episode, but I know I've told you this, but when I look at Mike Miller's management style, it really gives me vibes of Mark Trestman. And I mean, if you know how that Grey Cup went in the snow, the winter game in Ottawa, you know, that's a pretty good comparison, I think. Really well spoken, motivating, but that sort of calm, knowledgeable, always calm and collected, no matter whether you're up by 20 or down by 20. It's that kind of leadership. Ricky Ray also quarterback was emblematic of that kind of leadership. That's something that I think is the right hand in a really adversarial time right now for the Argonauts. So I think they're in good hands as they go into this preseason game.
But he has big shoes to fill because you're replacing a coach that just won 2 Grey Cups and took him to these final 4 years in a row. So Ryan Dinwiddie, whether you like him or not, is one of the most successful coaches in Toronto Argonauts history. So he's got big shoes to fill, following in the footsteps of Ryan Dinwiddie. But I think Mike Miller, I do agree with you. He does remind me of Mark Trestman a little bit as well. And he is a native of Pittsburgh. So if you do happen to meet Mike Miller, the head coach of the Argos, talk to him about Pittsburgh, talk to him about Pirates baseball, because he's a huge Pirates fan too. And Nick, as we wrap our show up, I want to get your perspective here. As a fan, season ticket holder, and obviously the co-host of this show, what are you looking specifically to see from the Argos on Friday in Guelph versus Hamilton?
Yeah, I think for me, what I'm looking for in particular is I'm really looking for, I think, just better overall passing play. I think. Let's be honest. Last week was a bit of a wash with the nasty weather. It made throwing the ball really difficult. So I think that in this game, I want to see where you had a lot of dropped balls or like deflections, things. Those things obviously need to be gone into this game, and this is where I really want to evaluate the receiving talent. I think the defenses looked better than they probably would have in clear conditions. I thought the quarterbacking was overall fine, but it's really the receiving I want to see stepped up, and I want to see the coverage on special teams do better because, again, weather probably contributed to it. There were a lot of the punting wasn't the greatest either from both sides. But I think the coverage is something that really needs to be better in this game in Guelph, especially if we get kind of clear, sunny conditions like I think we're anticipating.
There's something else I was going to ask you, Nick, and I completely forgot. I should have wrote it down, but yeah, it's going to be interesting because the Argos have a bye week. The first week they have a bye week, so the Argos don't open up the season until June 12th versus Montreal. So it'll be interesting to see who gets playing time, how they're going to manage the playing time of some of the starters, because obviously you don't want to see them get hurt in a preseason game, but you want to give them a little bit of more work before June 12th and having that bye week.
Yeah, I think these days we don't see it quite as much. Like I think the mentality is more better to be safe and rest them. Like and as we kind of see with Chad Kelly, like there were all these questions about whether or not he'd be good to go, and like we kind of see this week one, he did fine. So I think these days we definitely lean more where if there's kind of a 50-50, it's better to just let them rest and recover because of the really short turnaround. And we really are in a day and age now where athletes far too often overexert themselves and injure themselves. It's not just football. Like you can look at guys who've been injured in baseball or basketball or hockey. Like there's guys playing with like completely torn arms or ACLs that in any other era, you wouldn't see that kind. But in this sporting era nowadays, with the competitiveness of it, but also with like the looming kind of sports betting market, tons of money being leveraged now that wasn't so 50 years ago. It really, I think it negatively impacts in that you have to give your all out from the get-go. You can't really kind of warm yourself into a season like you could in decades past.
I still think he's going to have some rust because he hasn't played in a year and a half, and with the injury and then the suspension. So I do feel, Nick, he will get my thoughts is he's going to be in for at least a couple of series, and then they'll take him out, put Arbuckle in for a couple of series, and then it's going to be Tucker and Anthony time the rest of the game. That's how I see it as a media and as a fan. So who knows? I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see Chad play some. I just don't think he's going to get a very long look. And I mean, even when you look at Arbuckle, he only played the other part of that first half. And and I think something we need to keep in mind is that all CFL teams last year, and it's been more or less the case over the last 5 years since COVID, you're almost guaranteed in this era a time where the backup quarterback is going to have to play at least one full game and a meaningful game. I don't mean like, oh, it's the week 18 and we're ahead by 3 games in the playoffs, so let's just rest and play the second string lineup. No, like your second string quarterback is almost guaranteed to play at least one meaningful game at some point in the year. And I would put money on the Argos having the best 1-2 QB tandem of any team in the CFL right now. Like there are a lot of teams that I could wager that Nick Arbuckle could compete for the starting spot of in place of who they already have. So there's a lot of value in Arbuckle being in condition he was. And we didn't talk about him much today, but he looked exactly the same he did in last year before he got injured, which is, I think, a great sign. He looks great.
I'm curious to see about Trey Ford, how much playing time he'll get for Hamilton, because Bo Levi and Mitchell is still an elite quarterback, but you need that backup quarterback. So, and they lost Taylor Powell. I think he signed with the Elks, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Bo, the question I always have is like kind of the way, when Ricky Ray was getting up there in his career, like you worry that all it sometimes takes is one bad hit. I hate to say it, but sometimes we see that like that happened a couple of years back, 3 or 4 years ago. He took one bad hit against the Argos, and Bo missed like 3/4 of the season. So it can happen to anybody in this era. So,
Nick, as we wrap this up, I'm not going to predict the Tiger Cats game or Argo game preseason, whatever. But what are your thoughts on the opening up the season against Montreal on June 12th? quickly.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think it's as good as a challenge as any. I mean, we saw that last year. They played Montreal in the opening week, and um, Montreal really locked into that game, and they frankly stomped Toronto at the beginning. And I think you're probably going to see a similar mentality out of Montreal. And I think it's as best a place of any, where I think Chad Kelly's kind of had the biggest demons to exercise from there. I mean, we all know how that East final in 2024 went, and we know how the East final in 2023 went. So I think it's as good a ground where if the Argos can come out in that game and prove something and quiet that Montreal crowd early, which is going to be loud, it's as good as any, because it's only going to get more difficult from there when you're playing your first 8-9 games on the road against hostile environments. Like, you got to wait till August till you get to play at home. So I think it's as good an opportunity as ever to use that as motivation and to prove yourselves as the underdogs.
And besides Hamilton, Toronto Friday night, we've got Montreal, Ottawa preseason at 7, BC at Winnipeg preseason at 7, and then Calgary and Edmonton, I believe, at 8:30 preseason. And then the regular season, I believe, for all the teams except for the Argos, will start on June 4th, I believe, with Hamilton opening up at home, I believe, June 4th.
Yep, I just got this out there. Yeah, so yeah, Montreal and Hamilton to start off the season should be interesting. I guess that's the one thing, though, that the Argos have an advantage in this year when opening in Montreal. Montreal will have already played a game, so they only have a week to really tune their game plan against Toronto, whereas last year they had the entire end of the East final to focus on it. So a bit more of an advantage to Toronto from that standpoint.
Hey, off the record, Nick, or on the record, Nick, if I can do a couple more interviews at training camp, which Argo player would you like for me to try to talk to next? And a shout out to Chris Belinovich. Chris has been really great to work with as media the past 5 years and getting coaches or players on my talk show or to come on and do virtual or live in-person interviews.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one guy I always am entertained and listening to and hearing from is Darius Pickett would be a good one. I think with Winnie McManus signing in Hamilton and the Argos picking Pickett back up, he was in Ottawa the last 2 years. Pickett was a part of that 2023 squad. I think there's definitely a lot of interest in him, or a lot of feelings that he is sort of the de facto kind of defensive leader, or guy who's going to kind of be that loud voice replacing what McManus kind of had in terms of vibes. And then, yeah, in terms of other players, I mean, I liked your interview with Dave Unger on your main show. He's a guy I always like listening to. Coxie is always a fun guy to listen to as well. And I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about his fighting back through, because he had that really scary looking injury there in the middle of the season last year. And it would be interesting to ask how, as a player, fighting through that and getting back in the CFL ready form. Because I mean, I know we didn't really get a good look at him on Saturday's game, but when he finally got to really practice in camp, I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday last week, he looked really good. I think the 3 passes he took from Chad all went for touchdowns. So I think Coxie's definitely wired in and ready to go this year to build off that. So they would probably be my 2 picks if I could talk to anybody on the Argonauts in camp.
Hey, Nick, as we wrap up the show, who do you see taking over for Wynton McManus as a leader on this defense? Do you see it Pickett or Cameron Judge, or both?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there's an aspect to maybe both of them. I think Pickett's going to be kind of the more louder, kind of outspoken guy. And then I think Judge might have a bit more of that kind of softer leadership skills. Kind of reminds me again, like how Ricky Ray was on the quarterback side, where it's just the little things you do in your routine. There's a good quote that I've heard from Pinball Clemens. I'm sure you've heard of him. Great GM, an outstanding person. But he always brings up this champion mentality. And the champion mentality is that it's not about like the big game or the big moment in the Grey Cup and what you do, but it's the little things you do each and every week at practice that prepare yourself. That's what makes champions. And I think you see out of both those guys, they go about it in very different ways, but it's how you prepare each and every week through the mundane, in camp, in practice, that sets yourself up for success throughout the season. And I think that's where this team really needs to look into and embody, to be in that championship mentality in a season where there's going to be a lot of animosity and a lot of challenges, and that you're playing these 9 games on the road. It's really going to take a lot of perseverance and inner soul searching, where there's going to be some really challenging times. There's going to probably be a 2 or 3 game losing streak on the road, where then they now got to go to another road city and play. It's really, how do you not let your emotions boil over, and you focus on those positive elements and those little things to develop yourself into being at your absolute best each and every week, even if things aren't necessarily going right. So that's one takeaway that I think hopefully Pinball has impressed on those guys, and are going to really look into in their own way of supporting their teammates, the rookies, the new guys to the team, and to build them forward going into the season.
Hey, Nick, where can our audience again follow you on social media? The best way of contacting you, and would you like to promote your appearance on Robbie Schneider's podcast show tonight at 8:30 as well?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. As always, you can find me on Facebook at Nick Small, or Nick Small 38 on Twitter or X. And yeah, tonight in about an hour and a half at 8:30, I'm going to be on Robbie Schneider's podcast show, the Blizzard podcast. So I will attach that link after the show. But if you are interested, you can join me there, where we'll talk a little bit more Toronto Argonauts content, and might bring in a little bit of hockey too with the Habs and Sabres. And yeah, you can follow me there.
And I want to say thank you to George and Rick for watching our show and commenting. I think they did about 15, 16 comments. And everybody, too, we're going to try to get guests on again here this year. The last couple of years, we've had guys on like Marty York, Mike Hogan, Sean Bowen's been on our show, Don Landry in the past. So we're going to try to get the occasional guest from either the Argos or from around the CFL as well. And I'd like to get guys from other teams, too, to get perspectives from their side of their teams when they're going against the Argos as well.
I'm sure Rick will be happy to join us one of these weeks. Also, shout out to Rick. Happy birthday. I want to make sure we get that plug in out here on the show today. Our one of the few Hamilton Tiger Cat fans I can put up with.
Back in the 80s, if they had this technology, nobody would be friends. Believe me, the rivalry the hatred between the Argos and the Tiger Cats was at its highest back in the 80s and even the early 90s, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of good history there.
It's mellowed out a lot.
Yeah. At least the Argo fans can get into the stadium and not get beat up until after they leave.
And by the way, I will be doing a few games again this year at Hamilton Stadium too. So I want to thank their organization. And even though I won't be at the preseason game this Friday, I will be trying to watch it on TV or following it. And I will be hopefully I will still be back at Argos training camp and try to get some more in-person interviews as well, Nick. As much as I love doing virtual, there's nothing better than doing in-person interviews. And the guys from the Argonauts have a lot of stories behind them that the fans don't know about, and we need to get that out more into the Toronto media as well. These guys are down to earth and they're human beings, and they're just as good as the ball players and the hockey players and the basketball players, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. I will add in that I will be at the game on Friday night though. So for anybody who's there at Guelph, I'll see you there. I don't usually do too much tailgating this time, but I just got a brand new barbecue that I'm looking forward to bringing out. We just did pork chops tonight, and brining them is 100% the way to go. They were absolutely outstanding. So if you're looking for pro tips on barbecuing, brine your pork chops before putting them on the barbie.
Actually,
I will,
Nick, you give me a great idea, Nick. We need to find one of the top Argo tailgaters for barbecuing and tailgating and have them come on our show. Honestly, that would make a great show. Argo's tailgating show.
I know a couple people who could potentially impart some of their barbecuing expertise. But I will say though, I will be tailgating down there early on Friday. So if you do see me, I'll probably have a few dozen hot dogs cooked up. So by all means, if you want to come and say hi, talk football, grab a dog, they'll be there. So
maybe I'll just come to see you to get a hot dog or two off of you.
Just for the hot dogs.
Yes, I like food, but hey, Nick, I'm going to let you go because I know you got to do a show with Robbie Schneider tonight at 8:30 on Robbie's YouTube channel. Robbie Schneider, 716 Sports Blizzard podcast. His show is on YouTube only, and Nick will be on tonight at 8:30. So please support Nick and Robbie Schneider on the 716 Sports Blizzard podcast at 8:30. And Nick, hey, I wasn't feeling great when we did this show, and now I'm all fired up. So
we'll bring Jonathan Kongbo out, and we'll do the 6,000 calorie hot dog eating challenge. How's that?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think I could win that. That's a show for another story, but I do want to do one show this year based on tailgating and food as well. Hey, Nick, say hi to your family for me, your brother, and we'll talk to you soon. And fingers crossed, I will get some more Argo interviews hopefully tomorrow, and we'll see you soon.
Yep. Thanks a lot for anybody tuning in the 716 Blizzard podcast this evening. I'll see you there. Otherwise, take care. Have a great rest of your night. And as always, go Argos.
And by the way, Nick, we'll do a show just before the home opener against Montreal. So our next show probably won't be for another week and a half, but just stay tuned to Nick's social media or mine, and we'll hopefully get another show in before the Argos. Not home opener, but their season opener against the Montreal Alouettes on June 12th. Nick, thank you so much for doing this. And as always, go Argos.
Take care. Go Argos.
All right, everybody, that wraps up season 5, episode 2, training camp preseason episode of the Argo Bounce podcast show with Nick Small and myself. It is a weekly show during the CFL Argo season, independent, non-affiliated with the Toronto Argonauts, as me and Nick talk about the Argos preseason, regular season games, home season games, as well as some news around the Canadian Football League as well. The Argo Bounce podcast show is live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, Twitter, I call it X now, and Instagram. And the Argo Bounce podcast show is available on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and wherever your podcasts are available. So thank you to you, the audience, for watching the Argo Bounce podcast show with Nick Small and myself. And thank you to our audio audience for listening in as well. And if you're a business and company and you'd like to be a part of the Argo Bounce podcast show as an advertiser, you can email me at cpomay19@gmail.com or DM me directly on my social media pages. Would love to advertise your business and company on the Argo Bounce podcast show as well. And before we wrap up the show, guys, I have another quick announcement. The next Small Talk podcast with Chris Pomay and Marlene Sharp is going to be on Thursday, May 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern with special guest Joseph Farkle. He is a licensed property lawyer out in California, and Vadim Govorov. He is a sculptor and toy maker. So Small Talk podcast season 4, episode 5 is going to be Thursday, May 28th at 8 p.m. with Marlene Sharp and myself, again with Joseph Farkle, a lawyer, licensed property attorney, and Vadim Govorov, who's been on our show before. He's a sculptor and toy maker as well. The next Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by BarryCullen.com, will be coming up soon. I have to confirm with my guests, and we'll hopefully do another show as well. And the Argo Bounce podcast show with Nick Small and myself will return just before the Argos opener against Montreal on June 12th. And as Nick would say, go Argos, and thank you everyone for watching and listening to the Argo Bounce podcast show with Nick Small and Chris Pomay. Go Argos, and good night, everybody.
Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until they reach the top. Pull together till the Grey Cups won. Go Argos, go, go, go. Go, Toronto Argos, go, go, go. Pull together, fight the foe, foe, foe. Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you